It's time for a real fake news update, not brought to you by Pfizer or the military industrial complex and the war machine either. We want to be very clear about that right here at the Homeless Left. Not brought to you by any entity at all, just ourselves. And that's why we're an independent news outlet for you guys. Okay, today in real fake news, let's start with the obvious. We have an on-purpose divide going on right here in LA with the protests. Let's talk you guys through what's happening and then how the mainstream is choosing to cover it. So we're in 3 days of protests right now. We have Trump, who ran on immigration, coming through with that promise. He's in the last 2 weeks, he has stepped up the deportations by using ICE and conducting these raids excessively, to the point of he's gone from 600 deportations daily up to 2,000. And this is for the last 2 weeks. So as you guys can probably guess, things are uneasy here. We're in Los Angeles. This is primarily a Latino area and Latino families. And this means that people are affected on large scales. The deportations are happening. The raids are happening in very random places like elementary schools. And we know that it's been happening at the Home Depots and stuff. But what happened this weekend is there were protesters that took to the streets specifically to target the ICE offices. There was one particularly they were targeting that was right across from a Home Depot down in the Compton area. That's called Paramount. So we went out and covered that on Friday. The downtown LA, which is a little closer up to the main LA area, not on the south side, but closer in the downtown east side of LA. That's where all the federal building is. That's where the Union Station is. And during these last couple of days, from Saturday, Sunday, was primarily Sunday and Monday, that's where the protesters have been going to and have been a little more organized. So we're going to get into how that has panned out in the last 3 days. And we've been at all three, so we can tell you exactly what the sentiment was and how things unfolded at all 3 days. And they're continuing today, by the way, guys. This is not done. This is not done. So the tension between Newsom and Trump, this is, some can call it theater, but this is something the two of them have been at each other for a long time now. Now that Trump has officially ordered the National Guard to arrive here in California, they arrived here a day and a half ago. They've been here. They're not going anywhere anytime soon. Now the Marines have been called. So they're coming up from the San Diego area. They're going to be here probably today, later today, and they're going to be in charge too. So the idea is that Trump has taken this to a federal level against the wishes of the Governor Gavin Newsom. And they've been going at each other back and forth about who's to blame for the escalation. Here is Gavin Newsom's tweet where he's saying, do your job. This is to J.D. Vance, who's obviously part of the Trump team. They're both saying, do your job back and forth. That's what we're asking. J.D. Vance says, do your job. That's what we're asking. Gavin Newsom comes back and says, do your job. We didn't have a problem until Trump got involved. Rescind the order. And he's referring to the federal order of bringing a National Guard and taking control of the situation outside of the state level. And he says, Gavin Newsom says, return control to California. So that's something that is not happening. Trump is continuing to double down. Like I said, the Marines are on their way. Now, when Trump was asked earlier today, what is his conversations like been directly with Gavin Newsom? Let's hear what he has to say.
Mr. President, when is the last time you spoke with Governor Newsom?
A day ago. Called him up to tell him, got to do a better job. He's doing a bad job, causing a lot of death and a lot of potential death. If we didn't send out the National Guard, and last time we gave him a little additional help, you would have, Los Angeles would be burning right now. Los Angeles would be not a lot different than what you saw take place in California and Los Angeles just a little while ago. And, you know, you got to remember, we have the Olympics coming.
So we've been here the whole way. Obviously, guys, we're based here. January, if you guys remember back to January, we had the fires go down. There's so much shady in that back and forth. The fact that, you know, Newsom had been funneling money, not putting it into protecting the people here and the houses. The reservoirs were completely dry. We looked into how people lost their insurance. There's money. There's a whole money laundering scheme. There's this whole bit to get the Olympics to control the corporations, the banks, to buy up all the property. There was this whole thing. We did a whole investigation on it. Trump seemed to know what was going on, at least enough to vocally criticize Gavin Newsom. So that's where the feud initially started. So now comparing these, what he's calling riots and you know, beyond protesting, these are people that are out of control, burning the city down. So he's using the fire language. So it's right back to this: LA would be burnt to the ground if I didn't come in. The difference now being he wasn't actually president when the fires happened. He was about to become president. He wasn't actually president. Now he has the actual power to flux his muscle and take control of the situation in California. Now, whose fault is it that it's escalated? This is where we have to step back and see that it's not, oh, it's Trump's fault it's escalating, it's Gavin Newsom's fault it's escalating. The escalation is done by something of higher powers. That's they're playing both sides on each other, and the escalation is going to happen no matter what. And this is just a little theater piece for us to kind of take sides on and say, Gavin hit him like this, no, Trump hit him like that. That's what this is about. And as far as the National Guard goes, well, I'll tell you guys this. The National Guard has been called in the past during a time when a governor didn't want it to happen. So I think that it's very clear that we make that distinction. Not saying that this is an appropriate time or not an appropriate time, but just to be clear, Trump is not going beyond the power of the president. It's been done before. In 1965, it was Lyndon Johnson who overrode the wishes of the governor then that was definitely against Martin Luther King and the Civil Rights Act activism, and Johnson wanted to protect Martin Luther King. Now, it's a completely different situation, but it wasn't overriding or overreaching as a president. You can actually do that. So I wanted to cite that. But again, this is about hyping up both sides and making the other side not just the responsible party and the one to blame, but the one that's out of control and a danger to the country. That's the level of escalation that both sides are doing. And what we're going to do here is show you guys it's not about picking a side here. It's about understanding the entire thing is a psyop and to keep us on one side of things and not see the full picture. That's the problem. That's what's going on here. Okay. Now let's get to the coverage of Fox and how Fox is doing this. This is what you call real escalation here. Okay, take it away. Tell us what's going on in our city, Fox News. Ingram, I think the Ingram report. Go ahead. Tell us what's going on here. I'd like to know.
You've heard this time and again, and this is your state. I know you're from the Sacramento area, but what is your message to your colleague tonight?
Well, recognize that they're the ones who have caused this problem with their radical, reckless policies. I mean, let's just think about how we got here. They let millions of people into the country. The Biden border crisis was way worse in California than anywhere else. Then they declare us a sanctuary state and a sanctuary city, so ICE can't apprehend the most dangerous of them in detention settings. Instead, they have to go into the community with targeted operations. So then we have the sort of NGOs that you talked about that are getting massive state funding and some federal funding in order to alert people as to where ICE is at any given moment. And then lucky for them, there are plenty of potential rioters because of all the early releases that Newsom has done from our prisons. And then to add fuel to the fire, the literal fire, the likes of Gavin Newsom and Karen Bass have used inflammatory rhetoric, egging people on, vilifying law enforcement, and then they refuse to actually do anything to restore public safety, which is why the president has stepped in to restore
totally
order.
Forgot about the people they released early from prison.
That's right.
Talk about dropping kerosene on this fire. That's an excellent point for all of us tonight to remember about this state. And again, this is a state that I love deeply. I spent a lot of time in California. It is a beautiful, beautiful state, and it is being trashed by these people, and the voters have to wake up. Congressman, House Democratic leader Hakeem Jeffries, his voice is being lent to support those who are attacking ICE agents. Watch.
We need to defend dreamers and farm workers and law-abiding immigrant families, as opposed to allowing the Trump administration to try to distract the American people by unleashing mass agents, if they were proud of what they are doing, why are they masked? This isn't the 1930s.
Okay, so again, the language is important. How you report the news is important. And she's deliberately saying, well, Hakeem Jeffries, although he has an agenda, she's not being honest about what that agenda is by saying that he's supporting attacking these ICE agents, attacking the National Guard, attacking police. That's not what he's saying. You can't attack them. You're going to get your ass destroyed. I'll tell you about, we'll show you some of that later. So it's about defending, and you guys have to understand the sentiment here in LA right now. There is a fear in the air, and the fear, and this is the main thing. The fear has been created primarily by the media. That's the main thing. Okay, so you got Karen Bass, mayor of LA. You have Gavin Newsom, governor of California, blaming Trump for creating the fear, and then you have Trump and you have Trump blaming Newsom for creating the chaos. When in the reality, it's the media creating these vilifying, whatever side they're vilifying, and then that drums up the fear. Now, there are people in LA that are actually living through this right now. To have ICE show up to your elementary school and raid you, it's going to put people who've been here for many, many years are now skeptical to even leave the house. So that fear is actually driving a lot of people to stay inside. They're not going to tell you that part. A lot of people, a lot of Latino families are staying inside. They're not going to work. They're staying away, far, far away from the shot you're seeing there. Now, as far as people taking to the street, they're doing what they feel is the right thing to do, to get on the street and protest, which is legal to protest. You have a right to protest. That's something that we don't talk about. They're associating protest with violent insurrection behavior. This is the problem. This is the problem. So we need to have a little more nuanced coverage on what's happening in the street. We've seen on both sides, protesters and police get aggressive. Now, I'll say this from the ground. The protesters getting aggressive seems to be people who are provocateurs. They are placed there to do the violent activities to give the police an excuse to fire on the crowd. This is what we saw yesterday. The police don't actually need a reason to fire on the crowd. Yesterday, at the federal office, the federal building, downtown LA, there was no provocateur going on, no provocateur behavior. That behavior was going on the first 2 days out there. It definitely backed off, and they were doing peaceful protesting. And then the police moved in and shot at the crowd and physically assaulted the crowd without any provocation. So there is a difference. There's a distinction. And these people should actually get off their ass and go down and have a reporter down there to actually report on what's actually happening. Okay. Here's my report. I'm going to give you guys a little clip. Here's my report of what was happening at the federal building yesterday at the peaceful protest. Here we go.
Okay, we're downtown for day 3 of the protest. We're across from the SCIU building where David Huerta, the president of the SCIU, works out of there. So this is where the protesters gathered today. He was arrested. David Huerta was arrested last night, being charged with obstruction and $50,000 bail.
Okay, so what you might not be able to hear, it's very loud there. I actually am mic'd there, if you can tell, but it's so effing loud. So David Huerta was SCIU president. He's the president of the SCIU in LA, and he got arrested and held for a felony for obstructing justice during an ICE raid. So the $50,000 bail was paid. He's been released, but that kind of led the way to a real organized protest to let them out and to not charge the head of a union, the head of one of the biggest unions in the planet, the biggest union in the planet, or the second biggest, to charge him with a felony count for obstructing when he was the one that actually he actually got injured on the arrest. So that's the premise for this particular gathering. I'll cover a little more here in a second.
Now they've released him since, but the felony charge is still holding. The National Guard got brought out earlier in the day this time. So, as you can see here, so likely this confrontation will be going mostly straight through the afternoon into the evening. What we want to look out for, like we did yesterday and the day before, what we want to look out for are the infiltrators of the protest that will start escalating beyond peaceful protesting.
Okay, so as I'm reporting right there, that was what my objective was. Our team's objective was to seek out the instigators and see when that was going to happen. We anticipated it was going to happen. I'm going to tell you guys right now, it didn't happen. There were no instigators. The police were the instigators yesterday at the federal building. Once they instigated violence, then you had people responding to that violence. So there's an order of operations very important to understand. And so it looks like the police were going to do what they were going to do anyways. I'm going to show you guys a little bit of what we were able to film, but we were in harm's way. We were in a very, very dangerous situation yesterday, being fired at. You guys saw the opening of the show. We show you guys that reporters were getting shot at. They didn't care. They didn't care. The thing about police is when things are calm, they can be perfectly civil and human and cool. And we had our press passes, high-fiving, totally fine. The second they get the order to get into war mode, they put their humanity aside and they become war machines. That's what they do. And it's the same for the police. It's the same from any military. It's the same. What we're talking about, National Guard. We're talking about the Marines coming here. I'm telling you guys, it doesn't really matter. It's kind of semantics to be talking about. It's kind of an ego game, right? It's a who can flex their power more. That's why this Trump and Newsom feud is total BS. Because step back for a second and understand that anybody with a badge and a gun, anybody with the right to not have to follow the law and take the law in their own hands. I don't care if you're Marines. I don't care if you're National Guard. I don't care if you're police. I don't care if you're highway patrol. You have a badge and a gun. You have the right to wreak havoc on people. So the fact that we're talking semantics about who's been called and what they're doing, I'm telling you, when you're in the middle of this thing like we were, anyone can fire on, any of those entities can fire on you at any time they want. Now, again, the police have a way they are behave in respectful ways when they're not in war mode. We had plenty of, hey guys, and you're doing a great job. I'm telling you, those conversations happened. We had our press badge. Hey guys, can we get to our car? Oh, great. Yeah, that's cool. Thank you guys. As soon as they get the call, it's fire on the crowd and reporters were targeted. My colleague got knocked to the ground by one of the cops. He got fired upon, and it skidded across the back of his jacket, and it hurt. And he didn't even get a direct shot. So these are not accidental oopsies. These are like, they don't care. Once they get the call, they go into war mode, and they're no longer that person who said, "Oh no, I'm cool. Cops are cool, man. We're cool as long as you follow the law." So this was a peaceful protest that was interrupted. Let me show you some of that right now. This is how. Okay, here we go. You get the right footage here. Okay. This is the peaceful part, and then I'm going to show you the police deciding not to make it peaceful. Okay, so the crowd's yelling peaceful protest, and what they're doing is they had set a perimeter, and they told everybody there, if you don't leave, we're going to make you leave. So they give you that warning. Now, to be clear, there was no violence going on. There was no cars being burnt this time. We can show you that about the previous days at the previous locations. But here at the federal building, there was no violence coming from the crowd. We can tell you that for a fact. We were there the whole time. So they give you the warning. They give you a warning. And then what they do next, this is what they do next. And so what they're doing, it's a combination of rubber bullets, smoke bombs, batons, and they're firing. I don't, you guys see this because we can't film it because they're up high. They're firing from above in different locations, like literally like Oswald style, like, oh, from the library. No, we don't know where the bullet's coming from. We don't know where these magic bullets are coming from. They're not deadly bullets, so let's be clear, but when they hurt you bad and you're injured. And we saw people go down that were not getting up anytime soon. Also, the baton beating, that is a problem. People are ending up in hospitals. I don't have the reports in front of me of how many people were officially injured, but there was a lot of it. And we're telling you, reporters, doesn't matter. They can fire right at you when they get into war mode. This is the last shot we were able to get when we almost lost when our equipment got almost run over and we're barely ever able to save it. I did lose a couple pieces of stuff, but we got the camera, we get everything. The main stuff got saved, but this is the worst of it before we weren't able to film anymore. Okay, this is exclusive. You guys are seeing this first right now from us at the Homeless Left. This is them literally physically forcing us out of there, and they don't care that we had press passes. They're just firing at random people. And it's a shame. It's a shame that we couldn't get any more footage as we're running with all of our equipment. It was a lot to maneuver. It was a lot to maneuver through. And I'm showing you guys this. The reason I'm showing you guys this on Real Fake News is because we were there to cover the story, and the people reporting around these different news organizations are not giving you this story for whatever reason, on purpose, being sloppy, just taking orders, not asking questions. To end this segment right now, we're going to go on. We have a lot more to get into today, and we're going to bring in our co-host in just a moment. But I'll give you guys one more shot of some fake news to end this segment. This is from Fox 11. LA, local LA, and it's again, they're here. They don't have to get on a plane and fly. They're here. Okay, just like us, Fox 11 is here. Let me show you guys their coverage. And I can tell you, honestly, I think they're completely confused. I don't actually think they're lying on purpose on this one. I don't think they have any idea what's going on. And they're reporting safe from their studio while I guess they have an overhead shot or somebody's doing a drone or whatever they're doing, but they're reporting away from the action. And they have no idea what to report on. Listen to this.
To see that Christina Gonzalez was saying that this is not an organized rally like we saw earlier in the day, where you have the different organizations that are backing some of these protests. This is more, she said, organic, and maybe that's what you're seeing there. I'm hoping that is.
What are those boxes?
Are those masks of some sort? Are those gas masks?
That doesn't look like food.
Yeah, those are.
Looks like masks.
Yeah, no, those are masks. Yeah, so people are prepping for some sort of altercation with police as we speak.
Yeah, because, this is a different scene than what.
This intersection, like I.
Yeah. I mean, we saw
at this intersection, like I said, there's no local police. We've been seeing the burnouts.
A very different scene. And are those hats that you wear that are more like helmets? I mean, this is a worrying sight. I mean, Christina's site, which is like very close by, she was describing a festive atmosphere, and it looked like a lot of folks, including a lot of older folks, who were there for the right reasons.
This guy's tagging the sidewalk, right?
You know, this is troublemakers. You probably don't put on a mask unless you have a plan of not wanting somebody to see your face. And so this is concerning.
Where you can feel an energy in the air. It's hard to describe, where it just feels like something's going to happen, and you're waiting.
Okay, I'm pausing there because that's the box that was passed out. It's called a bionic shield. The reason why they're passing these shields out is not because they're looking to cause violence. They're looking to protect themselves. This is a defense item because we are getting sprayed with rubber bullets. We're getting smoke in our faces. We're getting there's tear gassing going on. It really, really burns your eyes. I'm going to tell you that. I've had it in my eyes several times over the last 72 hours. So the fact that they finally zoomed in to get the bionic shield, this is something. So the National Guard, they're allowed to have all their defense shields and everything, but the protesters aren't. when the police are making the first move on the protesters. Look, I'm just giving you guys, I'm just reporting you what I see there, okay? I'll say this again. Saturday and Sunday were a little different. They were provocateurs. We're going to get to some of that in our next segment. We're going to tell you guys how infiltration works. Yesterday at the federal building, downtown LA, there was no provocateur needed because the police were ready to do this regardless. And I think that's going to be my final assessment of the real fake news. And this is us doing actual journalism. We're doing actual journalism. I'm going to give you my assessment now. I feel that, and this is my analysis, I feel that regardless of the instigation and the violence of whatever the provocateurs are and wherever they come from, that's enough. Obviously, that's enough reason for police to respond with more violence. If the protesters don't have that go down, if they're completely peaceful, the cops are going to respond with violence anyways. So either way, the cops will respond with violence. If you give them a reason, they can justify it. If you don't give them a reason, they still will do it. They don't need a justification because all you have to do is report the way you can word your news report however you want. Use words that you want to use and say these people need to be stopped. The police are defending themselves. So it really doesn't matter. They're going to do it anyways, regardless. So there's no nonviolent resistance. There's no violent resistance. There's no nothing. Every one of these ends in the same way. So I'm going to tell you that from the ground, reporting on this 3 days in a row, and we're going to continue the coverage. If I get any new information, I'll tell that to you guys, and we'll reassess ourselves as we go, because that's how journalism is supposed to work. But what you guys just saw was a real fake news update, not brought to you by Pfizer.